Hello, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at the last time a Republican was elected a U.S. Senator in each state. We already did the same thing for the Dems. Today it's going to be the GOP's turn. So just like the other side, there's already a bunch of states that have two Republicans in office, but then there's going to be other states where they haven't elected one in decades. So to make it simple, we've got 6 tiers of shading here. We've got the 2020s, and we're going to go back more than 50 years as we fill out all these states. And remember, this is just for the last elected Republican. We're not talking about any appointments. So let's not waste a lot of time here. We're going to go through it alphabetically, or we're going to start in Alabama. To save time, we're not going to go through all the names, but this state currently does have 2 Republican U.S. senators. In Alaska, it's going to be the same thing. But then we come to Arizona. This state does not have 2 Republicans. They don't even have one anymore. They used to have them all the time, but if you're looking for the most recent GOP senator here, you've got to go back to 2016. Last one to do it here is going to be Arizona legend John McCain. Arkansas has 2 Republican senators in office. Let's go to the West Coast and look at a blue state. We've got California. For this one, you're going to have to go back a long time. You're going to have to dip into the late 1980s. 1988, that's when former Governor Pete Wilson last pulled off the feet for the GOP. In Colorado, another blue state, but you actually don't have to go back too far. You might remember in the red-leaning year of 2014, that was when Cory Gardner defeated incumbent Mark Udall. It was close, but you've got to give credit where it's due, and Gardner got it done. Next, on the East Coast in Connecticut, this one you're going to have to go back the farthest yet. We're looking at 1982. You might not know his name, but that was when Lowell Weicker won his 3rd and final term for the GOP here. Then we could take a look at Delaware, another similarly blue state. Here we can at least get out of the 80s, and we're going to go to the Republican Revolution in 1994. That was when Republican William Roth won his 5th term here for the Republicans, and that was the last time they had any success. They might have got it done with Mike Castle in 2010 if he had not been defeated in that primary. Then we've got a couple of current Republican senators here in Florida. What about one state north to Georgia? This is another state that's gotten a lot bluer over the past decade. The last elected Republican here was not David Perdue. It was 2 years after that in 2016. That was Johnny Isakson who won his 3rd term, and it was actually by double digits. He would later go on to step down during his term, and that's when Democrats were able to win that special election. Now we've got another super blue state. We've got Hawaii. This state has had 1 Republican U.S. senator in its history, and out of all the states, this is the farthest you've got to go back for the Republicans. The senator here was Hiram Fong. He won 3 terms, the last of which occurred back in 1970. So it's been a very long drought here for the Republicans. Not nearly as long as the Democrats' drought in Kansas, but still. Then we've got recently elected Republicans in office in Idaho. How about in Illinois? Well, this is another state that's considered to be pretty blue, but they actually did have a single-term Republican U.S. senator here early last decade. In 2010, Mark Kirk won a special election here to finish the remainder of the term of Barack Obama, who'd been elected president. At the same time, he also won a full 6-year term. That is a seriously embarrassing upset from Obama's home state. Ever since then, the Republicans have come up dry. Next, we've got a series of red state senators. We've got Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, and then we come to Maine. In 2020, that was the last time Susan Collins was elected for the Republicans. Then we've got another deep blue state. It's Maryland. For this, we've got to go back to 1980. Surprisingly, it was another 30-plus point win for Charles Mathias, the Republican who was elected to his 3rd term here. In another dark blue state, Massachusetts, like Illinois, you're going to have to go back to 2010. This was a special election to fill the remainder of the term of longtime Senator Ted Kennedy. This normally extremely blue state was actually competitive, and in the end, it was won by Republican Scott Brown. The next state is Michigan. We've got single-term Republican Spencer Abraham, who was elected in 1994. In Minnesota, we're going to go back to 2002. That was Norm Coleman, another single-term Republican who actually defeated Walter Mondale in that election. Then we've got more recently elected Republicans in red states, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, and Nebraska. In Nevada, the last elected Republican here was in 2012, and that was Dean Heller. In New Hampshire, the last elected Republican here was current Governor Kelly Ayotte in 2010. In New Jersey, there's been appointed Republicans since, but the last elected one was back in 1972, and that was Clifford Case, and he won in a landslide. Next, in New Mexico, here you've got another legend of the state. You've got Pete Domenici. He was elected to 6 terms, the last of which occurred in 2002, and that was by a monster 30-point landslide. What about in New York? Here you're going to go back to the 90s. It's going to be 92. That's when El D'Amato won his third and final term. Now we've got a bunch of current red states. We've got North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, and Oklahoma. Now let's go back to the West Coast. We've got Oregon. Gordon Smith was the senator who served 2 terms. He was last elected in 2002, and he won by a very comfortable margin of 16 points. Pennsylvania has recently elected Senator Dave McCormick. For Rhode Island, the year is going to be 2000, and the senator is going to be Lincoln Chafee. He would go on to change political parties later in his career, but he was elected here to the Senate as a Republican. Then it's more recently elected Republican states. We've got South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, and Utah. In Vermont, this state used to be very reliably Republican. It's a little hard to imagine that now, but they last elected a Republican to the Senate in the year of 2000. That was the 3rd term for Jim Jeffords, who later switched and became an independent shortly into that new term. In the state of Virginia, the last time a Republican pulled it off here was in 2002. That was the 5th term for Senator John Warner. In Washington, we're again going to go back to the 1990s. It's the red wave year of 1994. That was a double-digit re-election for Republican Slade Gorton. West Virginia has 2 Republican U.S. senators, and in Wisconsin, Ron Johnson was last re-elected in 2022. And finally, in Wyoming, another super red state, they've got 2 recently elected Republican U.S. senators. So that's it. That's the full map. There's a lot of dark red on here, but this is all about the states that have the droughts. The biggest is going to be Hawaii. Not too far behind is going to be New Jersey. Then there's going to be another bunch of blue states that did elect a Republican in the 90s or early 2000s. And then for one reason or another, in states like Massachusetts or Illinois, there were some special circumstances that lined up that enabled the Republicans to be able to capture seats during those years. So there's definitely some surprises on here. Most of the states have done it within the past 20 years, but just like the Democrats, other states you're going to have to go back 30 plus years. It's always fascinating to take a look at and wonder which of these streaks might end next. The longest one out of all the states is going to be Kansas. That went back to the early 1930s. So we might be coming up on a 100-year drought there for the Dems in the not too distant future. Other than that, that's it. This is the map for the last time each state elected a Republican to the U.S. Senate. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of these streaks? Which of these are the most surprising to you? It's most likely going to be one of the bluer states, but which state do you think is the most due to end the streak? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.